Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Okay, let's see what happened here. We got back 3 hostages. We didn't have to send any pallets worth of money. In the middle of the night, we didn't have to give up 3 top North Korean terrorists in order to get back these hostages. No wonder the media is so upset about this, because everywhere you look, Obama is being made to look a fool. And the drive-bys just can't stand it, folks. I've got an article here in the stack. This is, it's an AP story. It almost reads like a parody for the amount of snark it contains. AP basically says that Trump put the physical and mental health of these freed hostages at risk by trotting them out in front of the media for a photo op. Oh, my goodness. Folks, you know, a lot of things. I really think that much of this is imploding. Michael Avenatti, or is that his name, Michael Avenatti, the so-called lawyer for Stormy Daniels, his whole thing is imploding now. The Mueller investigation is on the verge of it. And by the way, I want to give you a little heads up here, because I actually think, based on a Kimberly Strassel column last week, a Wall Street Journal editorial today, and a Washington Post story earlier this week, I actually believe the FBI planted an informant in the Trump campaign before Mueller was appointed. Obviously, I think this was in the summer of 2016, because I think they believe this Russia stuff. I literally think, I've gone back and forth on this. I really think they believe, and I think this is why, you know, there's a FISA warrant, the application for the warrant to spy FISA, and it uses the dossier. But there have to be other things in that application. Trump could declassify any of this anytime he wants to. And I have told you, I don't think he's declassifying it, because I think he likes playing the victim. I don't mean to put it that way. He likes being able to tweet about the witch hunt. I think he thinks that it solidifies the bond between himself and his supporters. But clearly, if I'm a little bit overboard in suggesting they planted an informant in the campaign, they clearly have. And it's been read. This is what Devin Nunes is trying to get this. This is a result of his latest request. And it's based on a Washington Post story. And I'm going to try to make sense of all this as the program unfolds today. But I just wanted to tell you, I would not be surprised if, in fact, the FBI planted an informant in the Trump campaign in order to try to prove this Russia collusion business. I think these swamp people are so in the vapors with all of this. I think they're so shocked and stunned over everything that's happened that they have long since abandoned any rationality whatsoever. And by the way, you can kind of understand why they're going irrational. Let's take a look at the major Obama policy rollbacks that have taken place. Excuse me. I'm afraid I'm coming down with something. I've felt all morning like I'm coming down with something. I'm rallying now, but I felt like all morning, just on the verge of feverishness and stuff. No. There's no over-the-counter medicine that can deal with a cold or a flu or any of that kind of stuff. That's all psychological when you take this stuff. When you get it, you gotta get it. You gotta get it. You gotta live through it. You gotta deal with it. And I'm trying to ward it off. At any rate, let's look at all of these Obama things that have been rolled back. At the top of the list, of course, is the Iran deal. But here's some things that haven't gotten a lot of mention. Fuel emissions standards. This was a huge deal promoting climate change. The Obama administration had really ratcheted up the fuel emission standards that auto manufacturers were going to have to meet. Those have been rolled back. Net neutrality, which government control of the Internet, the individual mandate in Obamacare, DACA, the Paris Climate Accords, travel to Cuba, the transgender troop ban, the Keystone Pipeline's been approved, the Clean Water Act, Obama's Clean Power thing was blown to smithereens, the Trans-Pacific Partnership has been blown to smithereens. I mean, it's incredible the Obama legacy that Trump has already canceled or overturned. And there's a reason why he was able to do it. And I will tell you, if things don't change, if the next president is a Democrat, he's going to be able to reverse everything Trump has done. If all of this is just done by executive action or executive order, then the next executive can cancel it or add to it, what have you. Let's just keep going on the list. 1 month from today, Trump will meet with Little Rocket Man in Singapore to discuss the denuclearization of North Korea. The 3 hostages are returned home. Pompeo had his second secret trip. The New York Times, I'll tell you how pathetic it's getting. The New York Times runs a story, and don't buy that they didn't know where he was. They knew he was on the way to visit Rocket Man, Little Rocket Man, to get the hostages. New York Times runs a story with a headline, "On the day Trump cancels Iran deal, his Secretary of State is nowhere to be seen, thousands of miles away," trying to create the impression that Pompeo is a non-factor. It's so pathetic. These are now turning into spitballs against battleships. These pathetic little media attempts to dent and stop Trump. It's becoming laughably pathetic. The New York Times knew what Pompeo was, and they knew where he was going. They also know that Trump was canceling the Iran deal, didn't need Pompeo standing next to him. You know, maybe they didn't know exactly at the time where Pompeo was going. How does Pompeo get over there twice and back and nobody know? When everything else leaks. 5 ISIS leaders have been captured. Israel is responding to attacks, leveling this Iranian stuff in Syria. You heard about that? We are destroying Iranian installations in Syria. There is polling from CNN that suggests that the Democrats have, for all intents and purposes, lost any advantage in the generic ballot, which suggests that there isn't any blue wave. There probably never was. The primary elections on Tuesday ended up being very positive for the Republicans, including turnout in Ohio. The first woman to head the CIA, nominated by Donald Trump. She had her confirmation hearings begin yesterday. And, of course, let me ask you a question, a little reminder. Who was it that voted for John Brennan, who was Obama's CIA director and is probably, I think, the head honcho leading the opposition to Trump here? I think he's leading the deep state operation to get rid of Trump. Wait just a second. Let me go through the whole thing here. Don't answer it yet. Who voted yes for John Brennan at his CIA confirmation to be the director? And it has to be noted here that John Brennan was Gina Haspel's higher up, had the same record on the issues of torture that she has. He was there. He was all in favor of enhanced interrogation. Who was the senator who voted then for Obama's appointment to be director of the CIA, John Brennan, who is the one senator now getting all sanctimonious about torture and so forth, suggesting he cannot recommend voting for Gina Haspel. It's none other than John McCain. John McCain voted for Obama's nominee to head the CIA, who's got the same profile as Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel was a subordinate to Brennan, but McCain now says that he can't in good conscience support her because, I mean, he's all in favor of a woman being nominated. He's all in favor of the great groundbreaking things. But then her being around at the time of waterboarding and so forth, he just can't. He can't see voting for her. But he had no problem voting for John Brennan. Let's go to audio sound bites. My friends, you are listening to the Mac Daddy of them all. That's me. Last night, CNN International, they got a program called Newsroom. This is the CNN that gets beamed around the world. The co-host of this program is a guy named John Voss, rhymes with gauze. And he had on a former Los Angeles City Councilwoman, Wendy Gruel. And we're talking about me. They didn't like my reaction to Trump canceling Obama's Iran deal yesterday. They're talking about me and my reaction to all of it.
You tuned into conservative talk radio in the United States on Wednesday. This was a day for celebration. Here's the Mac Daddy of them all, Rush Limbaugh.
We actually have pulled out of this deal, and it's big. And I'll tell you, folks, I feel proud. This was a pure, clean break, and the application of strong sanctions. So where are we with the Obama legacy? The Paris climate deal? Dead. Done. We're out. The Iran nuclear deal? Part of the Obama legacy? Dead. Done. We're out.
So, Wendy, if Obama did it, that's enough for many on the right to undo it, it seems.
I think that's, to me, disappointing and frightening that their whole, view of accomplishment is just doing anything the opposite of Obama and bringing it down.
Hey, Wendy, let me tell you something. Being able to do this is accomplishment because Obama was so ruinous. Obama was doing great damage to this country, and being able to reverse it and stop it is a great achievement. But let me tell you, Wendy and Mr. Gauze, let me tell you why it was even possible. And you want to blame me as the Mac Daddy. You want to get mad at me for celebrating this. But the only reason this was possible is because your hero wasn't able to make any of this happen constitutionally. He wasn't able to get enough votes in the Senate to make the Iran deal a treaty. So it was never any. The Iranians never even signed it, Wendy. Did you know that? The Iranians have never even signed this thing. It was nothing more than Obama's personal policy preferences is all it was. It never was an official position of the United States because there had never been any ratification of it by the elected representatives of the people. And because Obama could not get, he didn't even present it to the Senate for vote on a treaty because so many Democrats, Wendy, were opposed to it. Many of them New York liberals like Chuck Schumer, and a whole bunch of them wanted no part of this deal, wanted no part of anything that strengthened Iran. The only reason this is possible is because Obama was doing things that the people in his country did not want done and didn't support. So reversing them and getting rid of them is a needed, proper correction. This is why the Obama legacy is so easily reversed, because none of it happened in a bipartisan way. Barack Obama was never able, after the 2010 midterms, when he lost the House, Barack Obama was never able to get any legislation accomplished whatsoever because he would not compromise with the Republicans in the House in order to get their support. So everything Obama did was via executive action. This is after Obamacare, for which there's not a Republican vote. After that, it's executive action and executive orders, and that's why they can be reversed. But they exist in the first place because Obama never had popular support for his agenda, Wendy. And look who won the presidency in 2016. Why, the guy promising to undo it all is who won. So whereas Obama really never established a mandate for all of these executive actions in order, the Paris Climate Accord, that was a joke of a deal anyway. That doesn't have any substance or have any weight attached to it. It's clearly voluntary objectives. And this Iran deal is even weaker than that. But Obama couldn't even get support for the Paris climate deal. He couldn't even get a treaty on that. He could not get the United States government, the legislative branch, to sign on with him on the Paris Climate Accords or on the Iran deal. His country was not with him on these things, Wendy. Now, you people on the left I'm sure, have not stopped to look at it this way. Because in your minds, Obama was invincible. Obama was unopposable. Obama was the first African-American president. As such, he was historical. As such, you could not oppose him. It was a gauche, improper thing to do. Whatever Obama wanted, Obama was supposed to get. That was part of our duty as a nation to make amends for slavery, the mistreatment of African Americans for all of these centuries. Obama was reparations light. Let him have whatever he wants, but he couldn't get support for any of it. Hence, a guy ran for the presidency, promising to get us out of the Iran deal, promising to get us out of this Paris Climate Accord, the whole climate change hoax. We had a guy run for the presidency who promised to do everything he's doing, and now the left is attacking him for keeping his promises. This is something that's just not done. Modern era politics, promises are for campaigns, but they're not for governing. Don't tell Trump that. So the guy promising to undo Obamaism, including Obamacare, is the guy who got elected. So Wendy and John, there is much more popular public support for what Donald Trump is doing than Barack Obama ever had. It's not even close. The Mac Daddy of them all, Rush Limbaugh. Mr. Big of the vast right-wing conspiracy. Here behind the golden EIB microphone, 800-282-2882. Here is grab audio summit number 3. Nicholas Kristof, yesterday afternoon, CNN's newsroom. He's talking to Breanna Keeler, who is the info babe there. He said, you wrote an op-ed that said Trump's attempt to blow up the Iran nuclear deal isn't foreign policy, it's vandalism. What do you mean?
It seems to me and to an awful lot of people that his essential motivation in rejecting the Iran Accord, as in, indeed, much of his foreign policy, is simply to overturn President Obama's policies, to dismantle President Obama's legacy. So to that extent, I think the underlying force here is not really about foreign policy, but about vandalism of everything that President Obama had done in ways that I think create real risks ahead for the U.S. and for the world.
They're losing their minds here, folks. I mean, there's some amoeba in there that is literally eating away at whatever, admittedly, small brains they begin with. This is absurd. There is no Obama policy. Obama wasn't able to get his policy supported. All of these so-called Obama policies are just Obama's personal opinions, his personal policy preferences that he could not sell. It's very important to understand Donald Trump ran for the presidency promising to reverse all of this, and he is the guy who got elected. And the only reason Trump can reverse it is because Obama was unable to get it passed and made official U.S. government policy in the first place. The Iran deal, if it had been ratified as a treaty, if it had gotten 2/3 of the votes of the Senate, Trump would not have been able to get rid of this. He probably wouldn't even have tried. 2/3 votes of the Senate, that's a pretty solid endorsement of the deal. Same thing with the Paris Climate Accord. If there had been a ratification, if there had been bipartisan support for this in the U.S. Congress, Trump would not have been able to get rid of any of this. Fact is, Obama never had support for any of this. This is not vandalism. This is a gigantic correction. This is a major repair job that is taking place. And it's amazing how much has been repaired. It's amazing how much has been fixed in just a year and a half. This ought to tell you liberals, you do not yet control the minds and hearts of a majority American people, or Obama would have had all this stuff done in spades and made it irreversible. And we're back. Great to have you with us as the fastest week in media rolls on already here at Thursday. The Stormy Daniels front seems to be dissipating, especially since her lawyer, whatever he is, I guess he's a lawyer, but I know this guy, Avenatti. He's also a former opposition researcher for Rahm Emanuel. Did you know that? It's primarily his claim to fame. Anyway, the Stormy case is dissipating because Avenatti's latest allegations are not only blowing up in his face, but they've now led to him being investigated by the Treasury Department Inspector General. Because this guy has gotten hold of information that he's not supposed to have. Somebody has leaked him Cohen's bank records. He's not supposed to have these. Who did it? Somebody in the special counsel's office? And by the way, all of these transactions that Avenatti has come forward and tried to sully Cohen with, all these different outfits that tried to buy consulting services from him, nothing illegal about any of it. You know, Cohen's out there ostensibly saying that he's got close connections to Trump and he might be able to help these entities get their way with Trump. None of that's illegal. It's called lobbying, and K Street is loaded with people like this. And every legal analyst on the face of the earth has looked at this, and they find nothing illegal about it. And Avenatti doesn't have anything illegal. He's just trying to prove guilt by association. But here's the thing. When I first read you the details of this story, I asked you to remember that the special counsel turned the Cohen story over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, the now famous SDNY. I said there's no way that Mueller would have turned all of this Cohen and Stormy stuff over to SDNY if it mattered. If it was going to help Mueller get Trump, he would have kept it in his portfolio. But no, and guess what we're now learning? That Mueller interviewed all of these people that paid Cohen this money months ago and didn't think anything of it. Turned it over to the U.S. Attorney, Southern District, New York. Now, Mark Penn is out with a story, thehill.com, a column. Who is paying Michael Avenatti? It's a great question. Who is paying Michael Avenatti? Is he a lawyer? Is he an opposition researcher? Is he a journalist? Is he a campaign operative? He wants to make the discussion all about where Michael Cohen got his money. But to have clean hands, Avenatti needs to come forward with exactly who is financing his operation, because it ain't Stormy. Stormy doesn't have this kind of money. You could take every $100 bill stuffed into her G-string for the past 3 months, and it wouldn't be enough to pay a lawyer working for her. So who is? Who is paying Avenatti? Who are his sources? Detailed banking information related to Cohen. And is he really just an attorney solely representing Stormy, or using her as cover to wage a political operation? Mark Penn, who is a former pollster for the Clintons, now runs the Harvard polling unit, says from the beginning, this whole Avenatti-Stormy relationship has been fishy. Stormy's previous lawyer told her to stick to her agreements. In contrast, Avenatti okayed her violating with impunity her NDA on 60 Minutes, despite a binding arbitration judgment against her. She has acknowledged on Twitter she is not paying for her lawyer. So who is? And did he indemnify her against all multi-million-dollar penalties? It took a long time and even a court battle to find out that the Clinton campaign and the DNC paid for the Steele dossier, a fact that was disclosed only after the damage was done. As the former British spy, the dossier's compiler, Christopher Steele, had already created a vast echo chamber, as though the material he was peddling had been verified when it never had been. And Penn suspects the same thing is happening here, that this is a nothing burger, that in accordance with the media, complicit with the media, turning a Stormy Daniels story that's about nothing into something that makes it look like Trump's lawyer was colluding with Russia to help Trump. Anyway, folks, it is dissipating. Now, I want to turn to what I think may well, in fact, be the FBI having planted an informant in the Trump campaign back in 2016. And I'm not really even reading that much between the lines. I want to first start with a Washington Post story that is from this week. Devin Nunes sought all documents on person described as longtime intelligence source. That's the headline. A subpoena that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes issued to the Justice Department last week made a broad request for all documents about an individual. An individual who people close to the matter say is a sensitive, long-time intelligence source for the CIA and the FBI. The Justice Department has refused to provide what Nunes wants. Intelligence officials say the material could jeopardize the source, who is a U.S. citizen, who has aided the special counsel investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 campaign. Now, the fact that this is a U.S. citizen matters because if the source here, if this source were foreign, then we would never reveal who it is, or we would lose cooperation with foreign intelligence services. So as a hypothetical, if the FBI had hired a foreign spy and implanted them in the Trump campaign, and whatever this spy, whatever this informant reported could have ended up in the FISA warrant application along with the dossier, then I doubt even a court would require the name of the informant to be identified simply because of the risk we would run endangering relationships with the foreign government that the informant happened to be a citizen of. But since he is a U.S. citizen, then all bets are off, and it is likely that someday we're going to know who this is. Let me read this to you again. The Justice Department has refused to provide the documents to Nunes. Intelligence officials say the material that Nunes wants could jeopardize the source, a U.S. citizen who has aided the Mueller investigation. The subpoena, which was reviewed by the Washington Post, demands, quote, all documents referring or related to the individual referenced in Chairman Nunes' April 24, 2018, classified letter to Attorney General Sessions. That is the only material the subpoena seeks. Devin Nunes is seeking the identity and activities of one person. In an interview on Wednesday, Nunes maintained he's not interested in any particular individual, meaning he hasn't named anybody. He just wants to know who this is. He said, we're interested in documents that should have been given to us at least last fall. That's what we're looking for. And any claim to the contrary is wrong, and they know it's wrong. Nunes said that the DOJ blocked access to specific documents and that the language in the subpoena was an effort to get access to the underlying information. Key takeaways from the Nunes memo. President Trump approved the release of a controversial classified congressional memo on February 2nd. They published some of the claims in it. But this is the thrust of the Washington Post story, and it is from this week. Now we move to the I think it's Kimberly Strassel wrote it. It's the Wall Street Journal editorial that runs today. The latest intel leak is designed to block a House subpoena. Last Tuesday, the Washington Post published a story with the headline, Secret Intelligence Source Who Aided Mueller Probe at Center of Latest Clash Between Nunes and Justice Department. The story in the Post reports the House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes recently sent a classified letter and subpoena demanding information about a top secret intelligence source. Now, the editor of the Journal says the story's bias is that Mr. Nunes, a nasty Republican, a really rascally Republican. This is the Post's bias. They claim that Nunes is threatening to compromise national security by trying to find out who this informant is. Yet the article itself discloses details that suggest the Post already knows who the source is. For example, the source is a U.S. citizen, has been an informant for both the CIA and the FBI, has provided information to Mueller. So the Journal editorial claims the Post already knows who this source is, and if they do, why can't Nunes? Well, Nunes learning somehow would violate national security. The story also says intelligence officials fear that outing the source could damage relationships with other countries. Well, only if the source is a foreign citizen, but we know now the source isn't. The source is a U.S. citizen, so outing the source would not damage relationships with other countries unless this source has also been involved in screwing other countries. But it suggests that the source has worked overseas. If they're going to claim that a U.S. citizen cannot be outed here because he might damage relationships with other countries, it means he has worked overseas, suggests anyway. Story says the role of the intelligence source could further provoke Republicans who have accused Justice and the FBI of engaging in misuse of their surveillance power. And here we go, hinting that the government may have used the source to snoop on the Trump campaign. There it is. So it's pretty safe bet that the FBI planted an informant in the Trump campaign. Nunes wants to know who it is. The DOJ says, no way, Jose. The Washington Post probably does know who it is. They will not inform. Trump could end this today by declassifying all of this. But he doesn't. Why doesn't he? We've explored that on previous occasions, and I'll go through it again if you want. But the point is this. These people, Mueller, the FBI, the DOJ, Strzok, Page, Comey, McCabe, it is absolutely incredible, but it may well be that they believed this. Even after learning that the Steele dossier is as phony baloney as anything else they could have written. They really believed it. And so they had an informant in the Trump campaign who was there to catch and to discover and to witness Trump's collusion with the Russians. If they had an informant in that campaign who was supposed to find the collusion and they still don't have it, I mean, look at what we're learning. They had an informant in the campaign and they still don't have any evidence. Then what the hell is this investigation doing, even being alive at this point? Now, let me add one more wrinkle to this. Glenn Simpson, who is the founder of Fusion GPS and is the good friend of Christopher Steele and is who actually hired him, the author of that salacious, unverified, uncorroborated Trump dossier, Glenn Simpson testified in August of 2017 that the FBI had a source in the Trump campaign. Now, Simpson said this to contradict claims that the FBI began their investigation based on the Steele dossier. Simpson knew the dossier was bogus. Simpson knew the dossier was opposition research. He is the guy who literally made the dossier happen. He owns, operates, runs Fusion GPS. He did not want his dossier to be Exhibit A for the FBI getting a warrant to spy on Trump and the campaigner needed because it was bogus. So in August of 2017, Simpson said the FBI actually began their investigation because they had a source in the Trump campaign. Simpson claims it was a voluntary source, meaning it wasn't a plant, meaning somebody in a Trump team decided to become an informant against Trump. Now, this is a convenient, quote-unquote, admission because Simpson was trying to take all the attention he could off of his phony dossier. So he testifies, no. There was a source in the Trump campaign, a voluntary source, and that's what led all this off, not my dossier. But what is being alleged by the Wall Street Journal editorial today, and what looks to be pretty legitimate, is not that the source in the Trump campaign was voluntary, but that it was an FBI plant. And it was there without regard to the Steele dossier. It was there because people in the FBI, and you want to name the names, Comey, McCabe, there's another guy, Bill Priest, something or other, mental block on his last name, but he's one of the bosses of all these people and could end up being very crucial in any further investigations because of what he knows. But these people must have obviously thought, I mean, they must have really believed this crap that Trump was colluding with Vladimir Putin. They must have really believed this. And so, based on this little sentence here in the Journal editorial, hinting that the government may have used the source to snoop on the Trump campaign, Glenn Simpson says it's voluntary. No, there was a turncoat in there. There was somebody in the Trump campaign who turned on Trump. That's not what this is. This is the FBI more than likely planting an informant inside the camp. Just remember, if they had somebody that nobody knew was there looking for this collusion and still didn't find out, what the hell is going on with this investigation? It should be over long ago. Yeah, and I tended to get the phone calls in this hour, and I didn't make it. So I'll make up for that El Quico in the upcoming hour. A brief break here at the top, and we'll come back and resume at full speed. Your Big Mac Daddy on the EIB network. You know, this is a classic. This is a classic Trump. This is great Trump. And it just irritates the hell out of the media and the Democrats and the snowflakes. Trump said yesterday that everybody thinks he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, but he would never say it. He would never say it out loud. He just did. Everybody, a lot of people, everybody says, when I mean everybody thinks I deserve a Nobel Peace Prize because of what we're doing here in North Korea. Now, I would never, ever say that out loud. Trump was asked by a reporter at the White House if he's deserving of the prize after getting the 3 hostages back. Trump said, everybody thinks so, but I would never say it. Trump said, you know what I want to do? I want to get it finished. The prize I want is victory for the world. And not for even here. I want victory for the world because that's what we're talking about. That's the only prize I want. And so it just rams it in and turns it and just keeps goading these people, and they don't know how to deal with it. They ask him a question. Oh, no, everybody thinks I should be, but no, I would never. Anyway, greetings and welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Trump also has the fur flying over the supposed allegation that he is going to start credentialing people in the media to get rid of fake news. President Trump yesterday raised the prospect of taking away credentials from news media outlets that he believes are reporting negatively on his administration, claiming the fake news is working overtime against him. He tweeted, the fake news is working overtime, just reported that despite the tremendous success that we're having with the economy and everything else, 91% of the network news about me is negative and fake. Why do we work so hard in working with the media when it is corrupt? Take away credentials? And now this, Matt Drudge has tweeted that he thinks that it is extremely possible Trump could actually try to follow through on this down the road. But, whether or not there is validity to that, Let's go back to why do we work so hard in working with the media when it is corrupt? Take away credentials. You know what they could do without having to take away credentials? Just cancel this daily White House briefing. It is absolutely pointless. And I don't mean this to be insulting, because I actually think that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is one of the best press secretaries this country has had in many years. I think this woman is so utterly competent and qualified at what she's doing, but still, why give the media the forum? Why give them the free, and then televise it? Why give them the free shot every day, not only at Trump, but at her? If Trump is about revolutionizing things, get rid of that. It's a tradition that dates way back when there wasn't a World Wide Web, when we didn't have bloggers, when we didn't have all these different news sources. It's a throwback to when all there was print journalism, and the boys on the bus would collect the news and write it and put it in the paper and so forth, and that's how people learned about things. And television came along, and it became a little bit more immediate. Then radio and TV together made it more immediate. Then here comes the internet some years later, and now, I mean, it's unnecessary. It's just a tradition. And you talk to any White House press secretary, they'll tell you the job was to say a lot but say nothing, to talk a lot but don't say a thing. No real news is ever made in a White House press briefing. It's just a place for these reporters to act out however they wish to act out. In the Obama administration, the press briefing was where the reporters went to suck up. It's where the reporters went to try to suck up to the press secretary, so the press secretary go back and tell the president how much in love with him they are. The press briefing today is exclusively for NBC and CNN to act like SOBs and be able to televise what they think is their brilliance the rest of the day on their networks. It's showbiz for these people, and it's a lame attempt at it. If Trump did that, can you imagine the outrage that would be forthcoming? Let's go to the audio sound bites. We have the president here welcoming the hostages back and thanking little Rocket Man, and telling the media they're going to be breaking records for 3 a.m. records, 3 a.m. ratings because of Trump. Here is Prince George County, Maryland, Joint Base Andrews. Trump welcoming home the 3 Americans released by Little Rocket Man.
The fact that we were able to get them out so soon was really a tribute to a lot of things, including a certain process that's taking place right now. And that process is very important. We will see if we can do something that people did not think was going to happen for many, many years, and a lot of bad things could have happened in between. So I just want to say this is a special night for these 3 really great people. This is a wonderful thing that he released the folks early. That was a big thing, very important to me.
And then a reporter started shouting, Mr. President, is this your proudest achievement?
My proudest achievement will be, this is a part of it, but will be when we denuclearize that entire peninsula. This is what people have been waiting for a long time. Nobody thought we could be on this track in terms of speed. So I'm very honored to have helped the 3 folks. They're great people. You know, I got to speak to them on the plane. These are great people. They've been through a lot, but it's a great honor. But the true honor is going to be if we have a victory in getting rid of nuclear weapons.
And then Trump decided to start bragging about ratings at 3 a.m. during this ceremony.
I want to thank you all. It's very early in the morning. I think you probably broke the all-time in history television rating for 3 o'clock in the morning, that I would say. But I want to just congratulate. These are 3 great people.
And, of course, the reason we're breaking the 3 a.m. TV ratings is because of me. I'm doing this at 3 a.m., and everybody wants to watch it. Everybody wants to be here, including you, he's saying to the media. Now, this morning on the Today Show, The chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington, interviewed the Vice President, Mike Pence. And she said, is the president praising the little rocket man too much? Is the president raising expectations too high?
I think what the president was referring to is that in this moment, the regime in North Korea has been dealing, as far as we can see, in good faith. They've been responding to the engagement.
He's enslaved millions of his own people.
Andrea, we have no illusions about that. We do believe that the regime in North Korea has taken steps that indicate this may be an opportunity for a breakthrough, the kind of breakthrough that's eluded the United States and the world community for more than 20 years.
How about that? Andrea Mitchell telling Pence, remember, this guy is a dictator. When did it ever stop you, Andrea, from praising people like Fidel Castro? What a bunch of... I mean, for crying out loud, remember, he's enslaved his own people. He's a real bad dictator. So Pence doesn't know this? Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington, they get in bed with these foreign dictators and think they're the greatest things on earth. Moving over to Good Morning America now. Jonathan Carl, interviewing Pence, said the president called Kim Jong-un a madman. Was the president wrong back then, or is Kim Jong-un a madman? Now, study this question. This is from an otherwise sane person. I knew Jonathan Carl when he was unpoisoned. I knew John Carl way, way back. He used to be, I think, at ESPN. No, CNN. Then he moved over to ABC. I used to know this guy back when I lived in New York. He was a sane, rational individual. These people, ever since Trump, have lost their grip. This question. The president called Kim Jong-un a madman. Was the president wrong back then, or is he a madman? And that's a trap question, obviously. Here's Pence's reply.
Well, we're seeing hopeful signs from Kim Jong-un that he is prepared to embrace complete denuclearization. That's his words. But President Trump found a way to communicate in terms, I believe, that Kim Jong-un could finally hear. He could hear that this president was serious about achieving the objective that has eluded the world community for a quarter century. That is the full denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Let me just, the media doesn't know what just happened. They can't comprehend this. In their world, Trump is this bumbling bull in a china shop that's going to upset every norm that has been established. And Trump is going to cause our enemies to go nuts and start attacking us. Trump is going to create just continual chaos because the rest of the world is not going to understand him and so forth. And what's really happening, Trump has come along and is doing exactly what they all feared. Can you name for me a president since, let's just see. Can you name for me a president since Ulysses S. Grant, who has been as successful at what he did in life as Donald Trump? Can anybody? Name, okay, who? Herbert Hoover did what in the private sector? What was Herbert Hoover known for? What did Herbert Hoover do? My point is, all of these people come from the Ivy League, the training. Harry Truman was a bit of an outsider, and look, he was a haberdashery. And look at him now. In retrospect, he's considered a pretty good president. But you can't name a president from the Kennedys on that had accomplished anywhere near what Donald Trump has accomplished in real life, in the real world, outside the political arena where so many things are put in place and are prearranged. They don't know how to deal with him. These people have no ability to relate to people who have not been or are not in politics. And so Trump comes from the outside. He looks at Kim Jong-un and he sees what everybody not in Washington sees, a literally insane lunatic who is there simply because of the family. And Trump sees the way he's been dealt with for the last 20 or 30 years, Kim and his father before him. And what Trump sees is the standard ordinary procedure of dealing with these people has done nothing but make these people more powerful. But Trump says, why should I continue this? So Trump brings his own real-life experience to bear on this world, the political world, and everybody in it does not know how to react to it. My point is, there isn't a president in the last 30 years that could have done this. They all tried. They all tried to do exactly what's happened here. Madeleine Albright, all these brilliant secretaries of state, got nowhere except making the Kim family in North Korea more dangerous and stronger. Look at what Trump's done in a year and a half. I'm telling you, these people are gobsmacked. They don't understand. Trump calls this guy Little Rocket Man. Oh, my God, no. Oh, no, we're going to die. Oh, no. It's like when Reagan said the bombing starts in 5 minutes before recording a radio commentary. Calling the Soviet Union an evil empire. Oh, no, you don't do that. That's not proper diplomacy. Oh, my God. Oh, my. They're totally gobsmacked. They don't understand Kim Jong-un giving up these hostages. They don't understand Kim Jong-un wanted to talk about potentially denuclearization. They don't understand any of it. And look at this next bite. Here's how they're dealing with this. Is absurd. This is Good Morning America today, and Jonathan Karl. Interview with Mike Pence. But here he's talking to George Stephanopoulos after the interview with Pence.
It is striking that both the vice president and the president seem to believe that Kim Jong-un might completely denuclearize.
That he might completely denuclearize, essentially, George, that he might be a transformational historical figure.
Right. Kim Jong-un, in these people's distorted vision, Kim Jong-un is the transitional figure. It can't be Trump. Are you kidding me? They say. It can't be Trump. Something's happened to the North Koreans, and they realize it's time to give it up, and it just happened to happen. They just happened to get sane when Trump became president. They just happened to realize they can't keep this up when Trump became president. It's just an accident. It's a coincidence. Kim Jong-un, the transformational figure. I'm telling you, they're gobsmacked. They haven't the slightest idea what's hit them yet. And they're further insane because they haven't been able to destroy him. They've thrown everything they've got, everything that they have that is successfully used to destroy any Republican they wanted in the last 50 years. They've launched it at Trump. Hadn't worked. They don't know what they're doing. They're getting very frustrated and confused at the same time. Folks, it's actually fun to watch this, to tell you the truth. In all four corners of the world, I am a household name. Recently tagged on CNN International as the Mac Daddy of them all. And time now to go to the phones. We start in Yorba Linda, California. Hey, John, you're up first today. It's great to have you here. Hello.
Hey, Rush, thanks for taking my call. How are you this morning?
Fine and dandy. Thank you.
Good. Hey, I just wanted to add an observation to a great point that you made earlier, and I referenced that CNN segment earlier. You said that not only is Trump's foreign policy not an act of vandalism, it should more properly be viewed as something that's restorative or some kind of restoration, because Trump was specifically elected on the basis of the things that he explicitly articulated he was going to do. And the observation I wanted to add is if Obama had done the same thing that Trump did, if he would have articulated exactly what he was going to do in truth with that specificity, he'd have never made it to the White House.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You're exactly right. If Obama, if any liberal actually ever ran for, or particularly presidency, if they run for the presidency, but honestly telling us what their agenda is, they don't stand a prayer. If Obama had run on you losing your health insurance and your doctor and your premiums skyrocketing, if everything that had happened in Obamacare has happened, he told you that's what he was going to do. If he had told you your taxes are going up, if he would have told you that he was going to make sure the Iranians ended up getting a nuclear weapon and still a way to make the world safe and so forth, he would have never, ever gotten elected. Instead, he got elected by promising all this free stuff for everybody. Health care for all, like your doctor, keep your doctor. I mean, he made that promise after he was elected, but that's an excellent point. And let me tell you what he's calling about. It's been a while since I made the point. And what John here is, all these leftists are having conniptions over Trump reversing Obama policy in canceling the Iran deal and pulling out of the Paris Accords. And those were never policies, folks. Obama never had the support of the American people for the Iran deal or the Paris Climate Accords. I don't care what you think. He didn't, because he couldn't get either of those ratified as a treaty or as official U.S. government policy. Look, there's a reason why there's separation of powers. We do not have dictators as presidents. They have to have the agreement. There has to be consensus between the president and the legislative branch. Trump would not have been able to get us out of this Iran deal if it was an actual Iran deal, but it never was. The Iranians never even signed it. It was simply Obama's personal policy preference. He could not get the Senate to even vote for it because there weren't enough votes to ratify it, so he just did it. So Trump runs for office promising to get us out of all these stupid things and wins. So it is Trump that is fixing and repairing a bunch of things the American people never voted for and didn't want that Obama did. When Trump wins the presidency on an agenda that largely is made up of reversing Obama policies, then how can you say that there's a theft or hijacking of a legacy going on here? There's simply a major correction taking place. But I'm going to tell you something, folks. This works two ways. And if Trump is unable to get Congress to go along with him on some of his major initiatives, then the next president can unravel what Trump has done, too. And what if that ends up being the way we're governed? What if this partisanship remains such that we end up having a bunch of presidents do rogue things that are then unwound by the next president, and so forth and so, with nothing ever having the official imprimatur of a treaty or the support of the elected representatives of the people? All right, let me expand on this for just a minute here. I don't want anybody getting confused, and we'll go back to the phones here. Now, so far, the only thing Trump has done that has been via executive action or order is reverse Obama regulatory schemes. The tax cut, the Trump tax cut, that's legislation. The next president, if they want to reverse that, they can't just do an executive order and eliminate it. Like if Pelosi is out there campaigning, if the Democrats win the White House in 2020, first thing they're doing is raising taxes. Well, it's not going to be easy. She's going to have to, whoever the president is going to have to go through the whole motion of getting legislation drafted and written and debated and then passed. Trump so far has not done anything that Obama has done. By the Iran deal, Trump's not done anything. All he's done is said, you know what? That was never U.S. policy, and it's not going to be. We're not going to abide by it because it's never been ratified. Trump essentially said, I'm pulling us out of this because this country has never officially positioned itself as a signatory to this deal. This is purely and simply Barack Obama. So the next president, if the next president wants to re-engage in the Iran deal, is going to have to do one of two things. Unilaterally come up with a deal and impose it on everybody like Obama did, or actually come up with a treaty and have it ratified by the Senate and make it official and thereby make it impossible to reverse with a presidential signature. Remember Obama saying, I have a pen and a phone. He was very frustrated that he couldn't get anything through Congress after the Republicans won the House in 2010. And they won because of Obamacare and his out-of-control spending. And from that moment on, Obama said, to hell with it, and just started doing everything with executive signatures, executive orders, executive actions. Every damn one of them can be rescinded and overturned by another executive action or rescission. That's simple. But not Obamacare. Look at how hard it was to get rid of Obamacare. It still hasn't been done. In the tax cut, the individual mandate was wiped out, but Obamacare's still there. Trump could not just cancel it with a signature. So the point here is that whatever Trump wants as a legacy item or series of items that are long-lasting are going to have to be the result of either treaties or legislation, meaning the support of Congress, which is the elected representatives of the people. That's what Obama bypassed because he never had the support. He could not have gotten his Iran deal ratified if he had chosen the treaty route. It never had the support. Obamacare barely did. The Paris Climate Agreement is another one. That was never official United States treaty or sanctions or action. It was once again the individual preference of the President of the United States, but it had no force of law or permanence attached to it because it did not actually represent the political feelings and thoughts and desires of the American people. And that's why it's easy for Trump to undo them. And this is what these Obama people had better understand. These things that Obama did were not popular. They never had the popular support of the American people. Obama and the Democrats in his administration were governing against the will of the American people. It's the only way Obama could implement his agenda. He never had support for it. He was not a great president. He was not able to marshal support for his ideas. He was not able to go to Congress, come up with compromises, and get people to support what he wanted to do. Trump has done a better job of that than Obama ever did. Much as it might gall people to hear that. But the Iran deal cannot be automatically re-implemented with the next president. Whoever the next president is going to have to write his own and implement it with his signature, like Obama did, or he's going to have to do it as a treaty. In other words, these people that want to restore Obama's legacy are going to have one hell of a time doing it. Because there really isn't an Obama legacy being unraveled here. These are the desires of a president who was a community organizer being shown that he did not have the unitary powers he thought he had to implement and put in place his agenda. Look how easy it has been to unravel Obama on climate change, Obama on net neutrality, Obama on Iran. It's been a snap. And the only reason is Obama never had popular support for it. We remain a constitutional republic. If you leave the people out of what you're doing, it's going to come back and bite you. Unless what you do is universally popular. Anyway, you get the drift. And if Trump tries the same things Obama did, if he gets frustrated being unable to get support in Congress, whoever the next president is going to be able to erase what Trump did, too. It cuts both ways. Here's John in Hagerstown, Maryland. We head back to the phones. I'm glad you waited. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm fine, Rush. Thank you for taking my call. It's a real honor, and thank you for all you've done for our country. So I'm just calling back in regards to that the Wall Street Journal editorial that you were talking about at the opening of the show. And actually, the piece of the Wall Street Journal seems like confirmation of an article I read by Thomas Paine that was put out about a month and a half or two ago. And in that, he reports that Carter Page, it was an FBI plant. And I say that it matches up in that Carter Page has worked overseas. Carter Page has been on the FBI payroll. And who was the FISA warrant pulled on from the get-go in the Trump campaign? It was pulled to spy on supposedly Carter Page.
Correct. Okay, well, let me put that in a hopper and digest it. And once again, let me explain. This is the danger of talking about things and getting to phones sometime later. You people may not have heard the original discussion or wondering what the call's about, so let me tell you. I've been piecing together bits of information from various news stories today. Washington Post story earlier this week and a Wall Street Journal editorial today combined with a Kimberly Strassel column from last Friday. And I am under I believe now that the FBI planted an informant in the Trump campaign. The Wall Street Journal editorial today pretty much admits that they had an informant who was a U.S. citizen. Now, the argument that's being made, like Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, oh, yeah, there was an informant, but it was a voluntary informant, meaning it was somebody on the Trump campaign staff who decided to start tattling. And I don't think that's what happened. Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson said that to try to take pressure off the fact that his botched dossier was the primary reason for a FISA warrant. I think he was trying to take pressure off of that and say the FBI had much more to suspect Trump with than just that. For example, he said there was a voluntary informant talking to the FBI. Well, I don't think the informant's voluntary. I think the FBI found somebody and put them in the Trump campaign, got him hired, but he was an informant. He was a spy. And the purpose was to find evidence that Trump was colluding with Russia. This happened during the campaign. Now, John here thinks because of a website that he's read where there's some poster named Thomas Paine, that it's Carter Page, who is the informant that was hired by the FBI, because the original FISA warrant, the one that was granted to spy on anybody, was to spy on Carter Page. And Carter Page didn't do anything. And ever since the FISA warrant on Carter Page, we've not heard a word about him. His name has never been mentioned in any aspect of this investigation, and yet he's the guy that they got the original FISA warrant for. So if they got a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page, and therefore everybody and anybody else he's talking to, then why haven't we had a single leak about what Carter Page was doing? Well, John's theory is that he is the FBI informant. I don't know who it is, but clearly, if you read the Wall Street Journal editorial today, they think they know, and they think the reader can figure it out. I originally thought that the informant was a foreign intelligence officer because of various things, and the reason that I thought that also was we will never reveal the name of a foreign informant because we don't want to upset relations with foreign intelligence agencies. So we would protect a foreign agent who is a informant for the FBI. But the Journal editorial clearly says, based on reporting in the Washington Post, that this person is a U.S. citizen. In fact, I've put this at the bottom of the stack. Let me find it very quickly here and read to you the relevant passage from the Wall Street Journal editorial, hinting that the government may have used the source to snoop on the Trump campaign. The source is a U.S. citizen, has been an informant for both the CIA and the FBI, and has provided information that was given to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe. Robert Mueller's probe, not Robert Mueller. You got to really pay attention to how words are used in these stories as well. Now, frankly, I would have never considered that Carter Page he wasn't there long enough. He wasn't involved, and he wasn't. His period of time with the campaign lasted no more than a month or two. I don't know why the FBI would need to get a FISA warrant to tape Carter Page's phone. He could have just let them listen in on his own if he were the informant. The only reason if he were the informant and they got a FISA warrant to spy on him, would be cover up the fact that he's the informant. But frankly, his is not a name that occurred to me in this. I don't have a name, folks. And it's clear the Journal thinks that you can figure it out by reading what they've written. They think they know who it is, but they're not talking. Nunes wants to know. That's the whole point here. The point is not so much who. Devin Nunes, the House Intelligence Committee, has subpoenaed records from the FBI to basically confirm that they did this, that they put a spy in the Trump campaign. That's what he says. He's not per se interested in the individual per se, but rather, did they really do this? Everybody now that's been studying this is convinced that the FBI did have an informant and that they planted the informant. In other words, found somebody, got them hired to do work in the Trump campaign, and they were then to spy. And if they found evidence of collusion with Russia, they were to then inform the FBI. Now, the way to look at this, another way is, let's just accept the hypothetical. Let's say they had an informant. They had an informant. They had a spy. Wall Street Journal thinks so. Washington Post thinks so. They had a spy. So they had somebody in there actually spying, looking for collusion, and they still don't have any. What does this tell you? But then what does it say that they even had the audacity to plant an informant in the presidential campaign of one candidate? Not Hillary, but Trump. Well, at the very least, it tells you they really believe this nonsense, that the Russians and Trump were buddies and were colluding to steal the election. And that just boggles my mind. Common sense says nobody could pull that off. But they must have obviously thought Trump was trying. This is going to be one of the most embarrassing periods in the FBI's history, when all of this is finally revealed and the history of it. Let me give you another example of something Obama did that never had the support of Congress, and that's DACA. Why was Trump able to cancel DACA? DACA is not federal law, folks. It's not statutory. It's not federal law. It's a presidential executive action, and all it takes to get rid of it is Trump getting rid of it, which he tried to do. And because the children are involved, there was blowback. Everybody had a fit. But DACA is not the law of the land. DACA did not come from Congress. It's not legislation. Trump would not have been able to sign it out of existence if it were. Do you realize how little of the Obama agenda actually is real in terms of being representative of the will of the American people? Practically none of it is. Who's next? Jerry in Chicago. Glad you called, sir. You're next in the EIB network. Hi.
Rush, 10-year listener, first-time caller. Great to finally talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to point out what you were talking about in the first hour, what one of the previous callers mentioned, the Paris Climate Accord, the Iran deal, Keystone Pipeline, clean coal, whatever you want to call it, from the Obama administration. Trump ran on the ideas of getting rid of all of that, and he's succeeded so far in doing all of what he has promised with those issues. And that, I just wanted to point out the fact that what you talked about 10 years ago with Obama, and I hope he fails, and the mainstream media making a big ordeal about that.
Yep.
It's finally happening.
That is an excellent point. I did say that I hope Obama failed about 2 weeks before his inauguration in 2009. It was in a Wall Street Journal piece. Well, it wasn't, because they wanted 400 words, and I said, I don't need that many. I can do it in 4. I hope he fails. They didn't print it. And it was mischaracterized as I was hoping the country failed. I was hoping the country would be spared, that Obama's policies would fail to be implemented. And large part they were. This is the caller's point. Obama had to do it himself in executive action, and Trump is erasing them. The next thing up, draining the swamp. That was a big Trump promise, and that'll fix a lot of things if you can actually do that. CNN has the vapors today. They have a new poll. The Democrats' 2018 advantage in the generic ballot is nearly gone, and 60% think the country is on the right track. No blue wave here. And we are back. It's the fastest 3 hours in media. I am Rush Limbaugh, America's real anchorman and truth detector and doctor of democracy. Doing the job, the drive-by media. Well, I don't think they ever have done it. But doing the job, most people think the drive-by media does. I actually do it. You get both sides of practically every issue here. You know why? Because in order to blow up liberalism, you have to tell people what it is. And I happily engage in it each and every day. Telephone number 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address, elrushbo@eibnet.us. I mentioned mere moments ago, grab audio soundbite number 11. We're coming up with it. CNN poll, Democrats' 2018 advantage in the generic ballot is nearly gone. Back in December, the Democrats had a 15-point lead in the generic ballot. This is where pollsters ask, in the next election, are you voting Republican or Democrat? They don't put names of candidates in, and they don't ask about specific races. They just ask how people are going to vote by party. And the Democrats had a 15, 16-point lead in December. It's now gone. In addition to that advantage having vanished, the poll also shows that 60% of the American people think the country is on the right track. 6 in 10 say things in the country are going well. Amid improving approval ratings for the president's handling of major issues, including the economy, immigration, and foreign trade. Now, in this poll, Trump's overall approval rating holds steady at 41%, but when you ask about specific issues, he's way, way up. His approval numbers are climbing. In Rasmussen, he's going back and forth 49 to 51. CNN, CBS, it's anywhere from 41 to 43, maybe 44, and he's climbing. It's gaining. They are not talking it down. 90% of Trump news coverage is negative. It's blasphemous. It's slanderous. It's libelous. It's all of this stuff. It's fake. And I really think we're in the midst of a lot of backlashes. I think there's a backlash against the Mueller investigation. In fact, oh, I hope that I print this out. The public polling data on the Mueller investigation, maybe it was from yesterday. It's bad. More and more people now think the Mueller investigation is rotten to the core, not good, not working, than think it's good. Oh, what did I do with that? Don't doubt me. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was, for some reason, I think it was yesterday. And maybe it's today when I printed it out. But regardless, it's not looking good. The Mueller investigation is losing its luster, is the bottom line throughout all of this polling data. The Stormy Daniels thing, that's starting to dissipate. There's no illegality there. And even drive-by journalists, lawyers, and analysts are trying to talk drive-by reporters off the ledge when they tell them there's nothing illegal about any of this. And there's no collusion here. But you know what the real death knell for Avenatti's deal is? Mueller knew about it. I told you yesterday, Mueller had to know about this stuff long ago, that these people were hiring Cohen and paying him a lot of money. Mueller knew all that and still thought, I don't need this. He turned it over to the U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York. If Mueller gave it away and asked some other agency to investigate it, it means he didn't think it amounted to anything. And that's, when the media thinks they were onto something, they were breathlessly, wow, Mueller interviewed AT&T 6 months ago. Wow, Mueller interviewed the management firm 6 months. Wow. And then they had to say, wait a minute, if Mueller interviewed him 6 months ago, why did he pass it off? They got so excited. They thought, oh, my God, Mueller's already had this. Oh, my God, this means we're going to get Trump. We're going to get... And then they stopped and realized, wait a minute, if Mueller already knew this and gave it to the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, must not be too much to it. And now people are starting to question Avenatti. Who are you, pal? Who's paying you? Stormy doesn't have the money to pay you, and we know she's not paying you in the bedroom, so how are you getting paid? Well, I'm being polite. I'm assuming that he's not being paid in the bedroom. We don't know that, but I'm trying to be a nice guy about it. He's got a porn star for a client. What, is she giving him access to all of her porn library? I don't know how he's getting paid, but she doesn't have the cash to pay him. I mean, we know that. Mr. Limbaugh could be very simple. He could be taking the case for the public relations value of it and hoping to secure future clients. Well, we'll see how that works out for him. Maybe Eric Schneiderman can call the guy. What we're learning about the Kimberly Guilfoyle at Fox News claims she's got a fifth woman who Schneiderman manhandled and mistreated. Apparently, you know what the latest story is? One of the women, I think it's one of the four, or it could be a woman not in the original story. It could be a new one. Her story is, where did I read this? Town and Country Vanity. Oh, Town and Country. Did you hear what happened with Town and Country? Got a big party. Town and Country magazine, big party, invited Monica Lewinsky. And then they didn't. They also invited Bill Clinton, and somebody said, wait a minute. You invited Monica? Yeah, we invited her like 2 weeks ago. Well, you got to resend it because Clinton's coming. So Monica Lewinsky had her invitation to the Town and Country party rescinded, and she's mad about it. She's gone public. This is why we know. This is how we know. You know, all these things is it's just another instance where all of these liberals get together and they have like this kooky, this alien Met Gala, the Oscars, the Emmys, all of these leftists get together and they hang around with each other thinking how special and wonderful and elite they are. And all they're doing is putting walls between them and everybody else in the country. And they're building these walls, and they're suggesting that they're so much above and so much more elite, and they're just distancing themselves from so many parts of the country. And it's all being done on purpose. They just keep doing it, alienating themselves from everybody else, while I'm sure telling each other how special and unique and brilliant they are. Anyway, the story on the Schneiderman babe. He had a date with a woman who was told that he would be a cool guy to go out. They had dinner at some restaurant in Central Park. And he apparently, his problems begin with the consumption of adult beverage. Apparently, the one thing, or one of the things that is common in all of these stories is that this guy pounds it. Like 2 bottles of wine at dinner and then opening a bottle of scotch. So anyway, she found him at dinner to be charming and nice and funny and felt very good that he was going to destroy Trump and protect women and all. And then she decided to let him take her home. His car driver, I guess. She wasn't quite sure because he was clearly inebriated, and he was starting to display the personality characteristics that all these other women have talked about. But she decided, it's not a long trip home, I'll go home with him. During the trip home, her phone rings. She gets a text from a male platonic friend of hers saying that there's a party at his place, and why doesn't she come? And so she tells Schneiderman that she'd been invited to a party, and he lost it. He literally lost it, and she began to fear for herself physically, demanded to be let out of the car, and all it took was to set him off was that another guy had texted her. And it was the first date. They're going to find a way to blame Trump for this, and I'm going to show you how here in just a second. I can't wait to share. In fact, let me just do it right now. So why there's not enough time left to tease this. What I have here is a, yes, this is a New York Times story. Eric Schneiderman falls, Trump allies gloat, Democrats seethe. Now, stick with me on this. I'm going to read you the first paragraph. The moment of political reckoning began a day after President Trump's inauguration when millions of marchers protested his policies and treatment of women. that outpouring of energy has rippled through elections over the last 16 months as women have turned out and forced to vote and often to punish the Republican Party. Now, remember, the Democrats haven't won anything in these special elections. They haven't won diddly squat. This is all a myth. And those women that showed up, it was the result of a bot attack on Twitter. It wasn't legit. It was a bunch of people hired to make a protest, waiting for the go signal, just like Trump's travel ban. But here's the point of this story. Let me just summarize this for you. The point of this story, Schneiderman fails, Trump allies gloat, Democrats seethe, is that sex scandals, even when they involve Democrats, will hurt Trump. That's the point the New York Times is trying to say here. And the reason the Times is saying it is because these scandals, these sex scandals, energize millennial women who vote straight Democrat. Now, you may think the Times has a point about this, that any sex scandal is going to really tick off and infuriate millennial women. They just happen to vote straight Democrat. The Times wants us to believe that Democrat sex scandals are going to lead millennial women to voting for Democrats and blaming all of this on Trump. And that this is why the media continues to push the Me Too movement, because it's not hurting Weinstein, it's not hurting Schneiderman, that in their world it's going to hurt Trump. Christine Matthews, a Republican pollster who recently conducted a survey on the politics of sexual harassment for the Barbara Lee Family Foundation, sees an opposite scenario unfolding. Far from letting Mr. Trump off the hook, Christine Matthews contends that each new case of sexual misconduct in either party, and including Schneiderman, is likely to heighten voters' demand for a comprehensive response. And the voters most engaged in the matter are younger women who lean Democratic. It will probably energize millennial women who tend not to vote as often in midterms, Ms. Matthews said, adding of the Schneiderman case is just further evidence that this is a widespread problem. So this is the New York Times trying to say that the Schneiderman case is not going to anger millennial women against Schneiderman. It's going to tick them off about politics in general, for which Trump is going to get the blame. And yet, I have a companion story to this. Now, remember, you may think I'm making a mistake. I'm not. I'm telling you exactly what the Times story says. It's a, it's a roundabout concoction of wishful thinking. The New York Times literally writes a story here that the Eric Schneiderman sexual abuse stories are going to energize millennial women to vote against Republicans. Does that, just on the surface of it, on the face of it, does that make any common sense to you? If you start with the premise that millennial women routinely vote Democrat, that's their belief, that all these sex scandals involving Democrats are just going to make them madder anyway. It's not going to change the way they vote. They're just going to, I think it's 180 degrees out of phase. I think it's wishful thinking. I think it's wishful thinking, and these people think that these Democrats are going to escape any kind of blame. I think it's wishful thinking that Donald Trump is going to be blamed for what Eric Schneiderman has done. The companion story, Vanity Fair. Are millennial women tuning out the Russia investigation? As Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump's campaign winds on, the presidency has become a head-spinning choose-your-own-adventure game, one that could end in a constitutional crisis or the impeachment of a president if Trump doesn't fire Mueller first. Now, Vanity Fair writes about politics horribly. You must, it's sophomoric, and it's so left-wing bias. It's childlike bias. So you got to keep that in mind. Perhaps, as many Republicans maintain, the special counsel will find nothing. Outlets such as the New York Times, Washington Post, and Vanity Fair's Hive have meticulously followed the proceedings, chronicling how developments and scrutinizing their significance. But according to new data gathered by the Hive, the Skim, and SurveyMonkey, our year-long editorial project in advance of the midterm elections, at least one group is relatively tuned out when it comes to Trump and Russia and the accompanying intrigue, and it's millennial women. Now, wait. The New York Times just told us that millennial women are counted on to turn out, and they are dead set locked against the Republicans and Trump. If that's true, how come they're losing interest in the investigation into Trump? How come Robert Mueller is not able to hold their attention? How come the drive-bys are not able to hold their attention? And this survey of a lot of women by 3 different outfits: the Skim, Vanity Fair's Hive, and SurveyMonkey. It's not to say millennial women don't care about dirty politics, but when it comes to Russia, their interest drops off. Well, wait a minute now. Why is their interest dropping off about Russia? Because all Russia is Trump, right? Could it be that their interest is dropping off because there isn't anything interesting? And could it be that there isn't anything interesting because nobody's turned up anything yet that would tend to indicate Trump did what everybody's accusing him of? Mueller is losing millennial women who it said are a lock to vote Democrat. A little story from Breitbart that just hit. CNN's ratings for the month of May, and we're into it by 10 days now. CNN's ratings for the month of May have collapsed by 20%. Now, what has CNN been doing for the month of May? Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels. Oh, by the way, Mr. Snerdley, I got an email. And the email says that Avenatti is doing the Stormy case pro bono. Anyway, they've lost. Ratings are down 20%, and that's all they've been doing. This guy's appeared on CNN, 35 or 40 times, something like that. Here's Ralph in Tampa. It's great to have you, Ralph. Glad you called. How you doing?
Good, Rush. Thank you so much for taking my call. Mega dittos.
You're quite welcome, sir. Same to you.
Real quick, that latest bite there about CNN, I think a lot of those millennials sitting home in their parents' basement, Trump's giving them all jobs, so that's probably why CNN's ratings are going down.
You may have a point. You could be right.
Yes, but back to my point, I was actually calling today. I wanted to talk about the deep state, and, that term deep state anymore, I don't know why that's around, but, Soros, Obama, Clinton, these names are out there. So the deep state, when it was hiding, was a good term. These people are out here. They're known. And my point to that deep state goes to exactly what you were talking about earlier today about Trump and maybe having a plant and Nunes trying to get to the bottom of this. And, Nunes and Grassley have been going very, very hard after Rosenstein and the FBI and these stroke page text messages. And there's still 5 months, I believe, of text messages missing from end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And, also a bunch of emails and personal data on cell phones and Gmail accounts, which, I used to work in state government.
Let me throw something out at you.
Go ahead,
Since you're up to speed on this. Let me give you something to think about. I want you to throw this in the hopper of everything else you're thinking. I want you to consider that Strzok and Page didn't have an affair, that this whole thing is a construct that is designed to provide them a little privacy, security, and opportunity to be sending all these texts back and forth as part of the setup. By the way, one interesting tidbit from the CNN poll, which shows that the generic ballot, the Democrat advantage the Democrats had, is gone. The survey also asked people to rate various things and their importance to them. The nation's economy important. 84% call it extremely or very important. Now that's up from 79% in February. Immigration. 76% of the people in the CNN poll say very important. Taxes. 73% say very important. Russia investigation. 40% say very important, down from 45% in February. And so, my friends, it's not just millennial women who are losing interest in the Russia investigation. It's the people at large across the fruited plain. In all of these areas listed or given by CNN where respondents are to rate their importance, Russia is near, the Russia investigation, near the bottom of the list. Now, I know some of you might say, Rush, that's not good. That's not good. That means people aren't paying attention and they could be set up for a giant shock or surprise. That's not the way to look at it because the investigation has not gone anywhere. It's still on the news 24/7. The Russia investigation has not gone dormant. That's all the drive-bys are talking about, and it's driving people away is the point. People have had their fill of it, and the reason why you can't maintain your emotional reservoir this long without having it refilled, and there's nothing. If there were something, it would have been leaked. They don't have anything. Ken in Los Angeles, you're next, and it's great to have you, too. How are you?
Yes, Rush. I'm concerned about your 99% mistake-free rating. I have only heard from your program, none of the other conservative radio talk hosts, that the Iranians did not even sign the, quote, agreement. And I was concerned that every time you mention it, I've heard you mention it about 2 or 3 times, that counts against your percentage. It's important for me to make sure that you know that your listeners are covering your back. So if you could double check that, I would greatly appreciate it and pass it on.
I'm trying to remember where I've seen it 3 times this week or twice. That the Iranians, it was not even it's not a formally ratified agreement.
Right.
And the
again, you can research that. I got a couple more things quickly. Charles Krauthammer, a name from our past. My recollection is when Obama was first elected, this concerns his legacy, that Krauthammer made a statement that Obama's presidency is going to destroy the ability of blacks to get into not politics, the presidency. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
Not specifically. Let me understand that you think you remember Krauthammer saying that Obama's election would then prevent other African Americans from winning the presidency ever again?
Because he would do what he has proven to do. I mean, I'm not sure how Krauthammer knew that.
No. Look, I don't. Let me just tell you, and you can get your Rush spies out there to try to tell me I'm wrong about that. My memory is that Krauthammer loved Obama at first on the sophistication level. That Krauthammer was very eager and open-minded about Obama because of his intelligence and his sophistication, his think tank wonkishness. That's my impression that Krauthammer was. Originally in the David Brooks camp, not quite that he liked him because of the sharp crease in his slacks, but he, had dinner with Obama at George Will's house, and these guys were all singing Obama's praises. Now, that's not to say that Krauthammer didn't later say. I myself have said it. I didn't say it exactly that way. I said that the Obama presidency is going to be a setback. If it blows up, it's going to ruin chances for African Americans to get elected down the road. But nobody will ever say that because it'd be a racist thing to believe, think, or say. But
well,
I know,
as you anticipated, maybe Krauthammer did too, that Obama would overstep his bounds, and clearly he has.
Well, the risk always was. Now, this may be what Krauthammer said. I think if because you're talking about early on before anybody could really know what Obama was going to do. Although I want to tell you, I had no doubt that if Obama succeeded in implementing what he wanted, it was going to be disaster for the country. And that turned out to be true. But my thought on this is that there were people suggesting that if Obama failed, that it was going to provide an obstacle for future African-American presidential prospects. But I think it was a generic statement, not related to Obama specifically, but rather related to how successful or unsuccessful he might be.
I'll accept that. And one more question.
All right.
I understand perfectly what you were talking about in connection with the Department of, the Attorney General's Department of not disclosing the information that he has. But what's the end game? I mean, when does that come out? How does it come out? I have no idea. I mean, if they know all this, why don't they, bring it out, bring to light? What are they waiting for? Are they waiting to gather, you think, more information?
Well, now, what specifically? Are you talking about the informant that we're talking about today, or are you just talking about?
Correct. No, the informant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's the answer to this. The answer to this is that Donald Trump, as president, can force the release of any of this anytime he wants. He can force the release of the FISA warrant, the application. He can declassify anything he wants. He can make public anything he wants. And so the question is, why doesn't he? Why hasn't he revealed and declassified what's in the FISA warrant application so that we don't have to guess anymore? If there is an informant, the FBI hired an informant in his campaign, why doesn't he declassify this and tell the Attorney General to release it? Well, there we have to start speculating. And my guess is that there's two explanations for it. One is that Trump's in-house counsel, his White House lawyers, have got him convinced that if he orders this, that the media is going to start shouting obstruction of justice, and that the American people are going to believe that Trump is obstructing justice by telling the DOJ what to do, and as a PR thing, they do not want that. Even though he can do it, it's constitutional through and through. His lawyers have got him convinced that it would be a bad move because it would look to the low information crowd and a lot of other people like he's obstructing justice, even though all he's doing or would be doing is revealing information that the House is asking to see, and they are entitled to it. The president cannot obstruct by exercising his constitutional duties, but his lawyers, I am told, fear the PR hit. The second explanation, Ken, and I think this one is very high on the probability list. I think the president likes the perception that they're out to get him. He loves tweeting about the witch hunt. He loves tweeting that they're out to get him. Why don't they do this? Why are they doing the fake this, fake media, fake news? I think he believes, and this is not a criticism, don't adhere it this way, I think he believes that appearing as a victim of this giant deep state effort to get rid of him solidifies the bond he has with his supporters. And at some point, all of this is going to be made public because at some point, the Mueller thing is going to be over. And the interesting thing to me is what report is Mueller going to write when there isn't any evidence of collusion? And will we ever see it? Mueller will submit his report to Rosenstein, not us. And will that report be absent evidence but a critique of Trump's lack of sophistication and moral? Who knows what it's going to be? But if there isn't any hard evidence of guilt, this report is still going to be so critical of Trump you can't imagine. My guess. But I think in terms of all this that so far is redacted, unreleased, That's going to be totally up to Trump as to how much of it, if any of it, is ever made public. Back in a moment. Okay, attention, Ken in Los Angeles. State Department, November 25th, 2015. Iran deal is not legally binding. Iran did not sign it. State Department, November 25th, 2015. Find it at nationalreview.com by Joel Gerke. But he's simply reporting what the State Department has admitted. The Iran deal was not signed by them, and it's not legally binding. It wasn't a treaty. Do not doubt me. Sorry, don't doubt me. And once again, we are finished. The fastest 3 hours in media. But fear not, my friends, because we will be back tomorrow and revved and ready to do it all over again. Open line Friday. So be thinking about stuff you want to ask me, because it's what you get to do. See you then.